Hey guys, it's Hannah from Trekitt and I'm here at the beautiful Langatic escarpment today to talk to you about how and what to pack for a day running in the mountains. This is what I would take for a full day. I do have a smaller pack that I would just take a bit of food and some water just for a training run. So I'm going to be loading all this kit into my Montane Claw 14. So this pulls influences from longer ultra races and stage races, but don't take my word for this. Do always check on the event page if you're running an event. So today I'm going to kind of show you how to pack for the worst case scenario. So a lot of this kit is going to be weather dependent. So if it's driving rain, you're probably going to leave the sun cream at home. And if it's 35 degrees outside, you might not want to take an insulating jacket. That being said, we're never ever going to advise that you sacrifice weight for safety. So I'm going to talk you through all this kit and why you need it on you. So instead of sacrificing safety for weight and leaving items at home that you might need if you get caught out in adverse weather conditions, instead look out for items that weigh less but do the same job. So for example, this is the RAB Group Shelter 2, and this is what we recommend that day hikers take with them when you're hiking in the mountains. Now instead, this is quite bulky and weighs about 320 grams. So instead what I take with me when I go running is a little Life Systems heat shield thermal bag, and that's what I'll use if I get caught out in bad weather and I'm waiting for assistance. And that only weighs just over 100 grams and packs down really small. So this, looking out for little swaps like this is kind of where I end up saving weight on my kit. In the long run, lighter kit does tend to cost a little bit more, but it's worth it if this is the kind of thing you're out doing. Okay, so I've broken this kit up into 3 categories. So I've got the equipment, the food, and the clothing. So I'm going to kick it off with clothing. So in this little dry bag here is where I keep a spare base layer, and that's top and bottom. They're a real morale booster if you get caught out in rubbish weather and you got to go take shelter, and you just get your wet clothes off and put some dry layers on. They're also a requirement for most ultra races. Inside here as well, I have a little insulating layer. So he's just a little insulating jacket that I'll chuck on for lunch stops, and also again in bad weather, just to keep me that bit warmer. So it's not a waterproof pack, so I do just keep it all in a dry bag so that if I get caught in really bad rain, then this stuff stays dry, and I've got some dry layers to chuck on. So as well as that then, I've got a waterproof jacket and bottoms, and I will take those both even on a good weather day. They are windproof as well as waterproof, so they're good to chuck on if the wind is blowing a gale and you start moving slower. They're really important to conserve body heat. And should the worst happen and you roll an ankle or you get injured and you have to wait for assistance, then they're a really good extra layer just to chuck on over the top of you and just keep you warm. So on top of those, I also take a couple of little accessories. So I will take something to cover my head. In the summer, I take a little cap. And in the winter, I tend to take something a bit more windproof, like the Trino beanie from Arc'teryx. I also always carry these Montane Via trail gloves. Even in the summer, they just give me that little bit of extra protection on my hands in horrible weather. I get quite cold hands anyway, so it's just something that I don't have to think about. I'll also take a buff. Now this helps protect my neck in all conditions. So obviously in the winter it's a bit of extra warmth, but in the summer it's good sun protection. It's also really nice to rinse it out in a stream when you're running past and just chuck that on your neck, and it just keeps you cooler. Fab. Okay, so that's it for clothing. We're going to move on to food. We're just going to move this way. Cool, so moving on to food. Now food is going to be highly subjective. So it depends on your weight, depends what you like to eat, depends how far you're going, depends on the weather. So for me, I aim to get around 150 to 250 calories in per hour. So depending on how long I'm out for the day, that's going to be about 2,000 calories. This is roughly what it looks like. Again, it depends on your weight. For a bigger person, you're going to burn more calories, so you're going to need to take more. So this is kind of self-supported. This is what I'll take if I'm going out just by myself. You may find that like on a race day that you'll have to take less because you can fill up at checkpoints and aid stations and that kind of thing. They will still have a mandatory amount of food that you've got to carry on you, just to sustain yourself between those checkpoints, and also if you get caught out or you injure yourself and you have to wait for help. It's important in the summer, but it's still important in the winter to take lots of food because that is a way that you generate heat. So through months and months of training and experience, I've found foods that work for me really well, and you'll have to do the same. So this is just what I would take, but don't take my word for it. So I find for me, I work better when I'm constantly grazing rather than stopping every 45 minutes to an hour to wolf down 200 calories. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through a quick rundown of the kind of food that I would carry. This is just an example of just over 2,000 calories. So I will carry about 100 grams of salted raisins and cashew nuts. This is roughly about 450 calories. I'll also take something bready, so either a bagel, this is a slice of banana and date cake, and so this is roughly 250 calories per slice, depending on how generous you are when you cut it. These are some little homemade oat balls. So I change the recipe every time, but these ones are oats, brown rice syrup, peanut butter, and goji berries. They're roughly, depending on the size, they're roughly 100 to 125 calories per ball, and I'll take about 4 of those. Something sweet, so either some strawberry laces, or these are just some little veggie sour snakes. They are, I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, roughly 275 calories in a bag, but they're more just a morale booster. I'll also take a couple of hard bars. Now those are really calorie dense. They're about 170 calories a bar, so it's always good to carry a couple of those. And gels. I always try to eat more real food when I'm running, but gels are, they're just under 100 calories each, and they're really just quick and easy to nosh down when you're on the move. Okay, and that's about what I'll take in the way of food. I tend to take a variety so that I don't get too bored of what I'm eating. I also won't take heavy stuff like a big expedition dry meal, especially something that needs a stove to cook. And then I just graze on that throughout the day. Okay, water. This is probably one of the most important things. So I usually, now it depends where I'm going, so I usually carry between 500 ml to a litre on me. Again, do check with the event that you're running, because some of them require that you have a minimum of 1.5 litres. So yeah, it depends where I'm going. If I know I'm going to be going through civilization, then I will carry 2 of these little 500 ml soft flasks, and I will just ask to refill them if I'm passing through pubs or cafes and that kind of thing. If I'm just going out on my own, then I'll make sure I take a little mini filter with me as well, so that I can top up when I go past streams. And if I'm running a race that I know there's going to be regular checkpoints, then I'll probably just carry 1. And top up if I know there's going to be 1 at least every hour. So some people prefer using hydration bladders in their running vest. It's totally subjective. I prefer having the weight of the bottle sat in the front of my pack rather than behind me. And I'm also not too keen on the slosh a hydration bladder makes. There are so many tips and tricks on how to get rid of that, but I've never been able to get rid of it completely, and it really irritates me. So I prefer just having a couple of little soft bottles. Okay, so that is it in the way of food. So we're going to move on to equipment. I'm just going to scoot over here. Right. So we're going to start with the obvious. We're going to start with navigation. It's particularly important if you're, running in the mountains and the fells and not road running. There are loads of really good YouTube videos out there on how to get really savvy with navigation, but nothing's really going to replace just getting out with an instructor and doing it in person. We do a lot of work with Bob from Contour Outdoors, and he's been brilliant, and we're all very good on our navigation because of him, so thank you, Bob. If you don't want to carry a full-size map, there is a company called Dinky Maps. Now there are a few, so Dinky Maps have done a few areas already, so you can just purchase those areas if that's where you're heading. But you can go onto their website and request like a certain area, and that's just a little laminated map that you just keep on you. So my full-size map tends to go in the back, but if I've got a Dinky Map on me, then it just goes in a little pocket in the front. To back up my map and my compass skills, I'll also have a GPS watch with me, but that's more just to log my run. That's not what I wouldn't just use that on its own. I'd always carry a map and compass with me. So on top of the map and compass, I will also take my phone. Now, unpopular opinion, I don't actually listen to any music when I run. I find that I don't really need it, and I prefer to keep the battery on my phone for emergencies. So it's just good to know that I've got a full battery if I need to call my partner or mountain rescue if I get into the worst case scenario. If you do need mountain rescue, then dial 999 and ask for the police. On top of that, I will take a little bottle of sun cream. Now, I don't take a big bottle, but I decant it instead into these little travel bottles or into an old hand cream tub. And I will always take that on me, even when it's overcast. I actually tend to find that's when I get caught out the most because I just forget. I will also take a little collapsible X-Mug. Now, he's really good to have for races. Admittedly, I don't actually take him when I'm going out just on my own. But just for tea, coffee, Coke, squash, that kind of thing when you get to aid stations. A lot of events are actually going plastic cup free, which is excellent, so they will require that you have your own. He just goes flat and sits in the back of my pack. I'd also take my own little first aid kit. As far as I'm aware, when I go out into the hills, I am responsible for my safety. So if I roll an ankle or take a slip down a bank and I've cut myself up, I need to know that I've got the right stuff on me to look after myself and get myself either off the mountain, back down to the car, or just make myself safe until someone comes to help me. So I, at the very least, will take just a little pocket first aid kit. I'll also put a couple of bits in there for the dog if I'm taking her too. Antihistamines are really good to take as well in case she eats a bee. We do actually have a video on how to hike with your dog. I'll pop the link to it up here, and that's just a good one to watch too, and a lot of that applies for if you're running with your dog in the mountains as well. On top of that first aid kit, I will take, we briefly discussed it in the beginning, but just this little heat shield thermal bag, and that's just, again, in the worst case scenario, if I get into trouble and I roll an ankle and I've got to wait for someone, then I just get inside that. It's also bright orange, so if the weather's really bad and someone's looking for me, then that does make it easier to find. Okay, so on top of that as well, I will take a head torch and spare batteries. Yes, I will even take one if I don't intend to be out until after sunset. I could give you 23 million scenarios as to why you might need a torch, so just take one. It doesn't weigh very much and, could just end up saving you. Inside my little running vest as well. You can buy them separately if you don't have one, obviously. In this little pocket, there is an emergency whistle. That's really handy to have. If you get into trouble, so on Mountain Rescue's website, if you get into trouble, an emergency signal is 6 long blasts on a whistle, stop for 1 minute and repeat. And either on a whistle or 6 long flashes on a head torch. So now I'm just going to quickly go through how I pack my bag. So unlike a big rucksack that I would take, for a multi-day hike, I don't pack by weight because everything's relatively light. Instead, I pack by priority. So in the front of the pack, you've got these little pockets. This is where I put my food and water, basically stuff I need to get to relatively quickly. I don't want to take off my pack and take everything out just to find a gel. So the gels and the hard bars go into the nice big pocket at the front. Big water bottle in the other big front pocket. Goes nicely in there. That little zip pocket has my little sweeties, because priorities. This other little pocket at the top here is where I stuff my compass, and if I have it, my dinky map goes in there too. Now, I don't know if you can see them very well. There are these stretchy side pockets too, and that is, where I'll put the rest of my food. So, oat balls inside, nuts, and banana bread in the side. Fantastic. Now, best way to do this. Moving on to the main body of the bag. So I put all of the flat bits in the back. So my big map. In an event, I'll probably have the map folded onto the right place and stuffed in a map case in the front, or I'll have a little dinky map in that front pocket. My collapsible mug, then got the pocket in front of that one. That's where I'll stuff all the clothing. So that's the dry bag with the base layers and the insulating jacket. It'll just go into the bottom there. And then my waterproof jacket. Actually, waterproof trousers would go in first. And the waterproof jacket will go on top of that, because that's probably what I'll need to get to first. And then gloves and buff, they'll go in there too. In this pack, there's a really lovely big front pocket, and that's kind of where I put all the accessories. So the accessories go in here. So heat shield bag first, because that'll probably be lower down and what I might need. So then the first aid kit goes in. Head torch and head torch and spare batteries, and sun cream, and then I'd be wearing my cap. Okay guys, well that's everything that I would take for a day running in the mountains. Hopefully we've covered everything, but if you still have any questions or anything that you would add to this list, then do pop them in the comment section below and we'll get back to you. Just to note that this is the Montane Women's Claw 14. We don't actually stock this in the shop. Instead, we stock the unisex version, which is the Razor 15. But this is my own pack, and I just found that the Razor was just a bit too big on me, and the women's version fitted me better because I'm so tiny. And lastly, all the products that we've used, we'll pop the links for them in the description below. And if you love this and you love our content in general, then hit the subscribe button. We really do appreciate it. Other than that, I will see you next time, guys. Thank you very much. Bye.